What's going on, Warriors? We are really excited to just announce a rebranding of what we've been doing to what really aligns with a different level of purpose for who we are as human beings and who we are as a couple. We are excited for the rebrand because we are no longer Legacy Warrior Podcast. We are now Legacy Driven Marriages, and we're so excited that you're here. I got to tell you, I'm here with my partner in crime, Stephanie McKinley, as always.
Hey, everybody.
That didn't change. The warrior doesn't change because you still need to get into the arena of your marriage and you need to fight for your relationship. Look, guys, we've been married for 23 years, going on 24 years here soon. Been together 26, quarter of a century. Don't trade me in, baby. We've been together for a long time, and we know the ups and downs firsthand that you can go through in your relationships. But we also know the joy and the beauty of what happens when you're willing to fight for your relationship, when you're willing to fight for your marriage and fight for each other and fight for love in order to save your marriage, elevate your marriage, and thus change generational legacies long after you're gone. And so I can't wait to get this party started. We got a great topic today, but I know, Steph, go ahead and jump in there because I know you wanted to talk a little bit about why this is important to you too.
Yeah, look, everybody, I have to tell you the reason I am in this chair right now, the reason I am on this podcast, the whole purpose for me has been that I want to save marriages and I want to save families. And I know Walt, it's a huge part for him too. He's all about legacy. And a big reason behind that is because we've been through our own struggles and we've been on that brink where we almost threw in the towel. And so we know what that's like. And we know we want to keep other people from getting to that point and really make it to where, we can have these loving, healthy family relationships. And it's just so important. I mean, so many people we talk to, there's so much struggle out there. And, it just breaks my heart to see couples not make it and the kids be affected too. And so it's just a really driving force for us. And so we just feel like this is going to be more connected to the real purpose we have. And that is to create different legacies down the road. If we can save one family and they go on to, their legacy continues in that it's healthy relationships, then we'll feel like we did our job. Like we fulfilled our purpose here. So, that's a big driving force for us. I just wanted to really reiterate that we feel very passionately about this, and I hope that comes through when you listen to some of these episodes because we have really lived it. We know what you're all dealing with. You're not in a marriage for 24 years and not go through a lot together.
That's the truth.
And we have really grown up together. I was 20 when we got married and Walt was 22. So, I mean, we were babies when we got married. And so we had to go through this whole life journey together as adults. And it's not easy.
Well, isn't that what it is though, Steph? It's like you're supposed to grow together in your marriage because it is truly a partnership. I mean, you bring out the best in me, I bring out the best in you. We have really become a blend of each other over the course of a quarter of a century of being together. And I think that that's what's so crucial and what's so vital. But like many of you out there listening, we were on the precipice of divorce. There was resentment, there was pain, there was anger, there was ego, there was all these things in the way. And what we learned is that if we were really willing to get in there and fight and put that pain and ego and those things to the side and realize, man, there was a time when we were really in love. There was a time when our marriage was just everything to us. There was a time when we showed up in our relationship as the best version of us, even if we had a bad day. And then we got comfortable. And then we took each other for granted. And then the struggle started. And then we had to make some hard decisions. And we didn't always do things right. We did a lot of things wrong. But man, as we've learned how to do things more right, as we've learned how to take that pain that we've been through and really align it with our purpose, as we've realized that legacy driven marriages is a thing that we've really been called to for a long time. And honestly, I'm excited because I get to do this with my best friend and my partner in crime. And we get to help save other people's marriages and give them the belief they can go from where we were at to where we're at now. So
yeah, if you guys have been listening for a while, you know that we big thing for us is turning your pain into purpose. And so for us, this is because at one time our marriage was a source of pain for us, and it's hard. And that we know what goes into it. We know how hard it can be sometimes day to day, and that affects everything in your life. So we just really want to give you guys the tools. Like we can always talk about those tools for your tool belt, your toolbox that you can draw from when you get in these moments, because they will come. I
Yeah, I
promise you.
promise. Yeah.
So we're going to start today. We're going to talk about communication, because we do feel like communication is, honestly, it is the biggest piece of a marriage, that it has the biggest impact. Um, if you talk to any couples that have been together a really long time, what is the number one answer they always give? It's always communication. And I've always been like, I hate when they just say communication, because I don't really know what that means. Like, you know, sure, we communicate, we tell each other stuff all the time. Doesn't mean that the other person's listening, but
Yeah, we're going to talk about that too.
we find a way to communicate. But, we're going to give you 5 things today that are, this would be the best way to communicate with each other. This is what makes good communication.
And what's cool is, part of this revamp for us is really trying to get these episodes down to, I don't know, call it 30-ish minutes, but give you guys real tactical, tangible things that you can start to do right now. So look, if you haven't done it, go hit subscribe on this podcast. Make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell so you get notifications every Tuesday when we put a new episode out. And go leave us a review, man. Like those reviews, I don't think you guys realize just how much they help. So we'd love if you take an opportunity to do that. And the Legacy Driven Marriages is now on Instagram, it is on Facebook, and it is on YouTube. So we've kind of shifted all of that over. So thank you for joining us. And as Stephanie said, we're going to talk about communication, ways to make your communication thrive in your relationship. Because look, especially for the fellas, because I feel like women probably say this more than men. Because let's be real, fellas, sometimes we suck at listening. But have you guys ever heard your spouse, your partner, the person you've been in a relationship say, God, you never listened to me?
Well, the funny thing is,
what are you laughing so hard for?
Our relationship is a little different. Most of the time they say that women are the ones that are, my husband talks more than I do. So there are some relationships out there where it is a little switched. So whoever is the true communicator, and sometimes that is the man, believe it or not. I know that's pretty rare, but in our situation, it's,
well, you're the communicator too. You just communicate a little differently than me. So, and that's a cool thing. And here's the reality, guys. The stuff that we're going to talk about, we'll make some generalizations based upon statistics we see or certain things that we see. Nothing's ever absolute, right? There's no 100% solution to everything. So in your relationship, it might be opposite. The man and the woman's roles might be just shifted a little bit, and that's okay. So I think it's just apply it to how it works in your relationship. Don't think we mean absolute statements when we make those words unequivocally 100% of the time the man does this, 100% of the time the woman does this. It really is a mix of both.
Oh, definitely. It's a blend.
Yes. And we're a blend of each other now, which is pretty dope, if I do say so. So how do you create strong and healthy relationships? Look, guys, the first one we want to talk about is active listening. And I got to tell you, I suck at this one. I'm mediocre maybe now, but I sucked when I was younger because I always listened to respond. I honestly didn't know from just the example that was set for me growing up and just the way my mind works. And I'm always on full speed. I'm always trying to move to the next thing. I never really listened to listen, not to respond, not to think about how I felt about it. Just listen to listen, really giving my full attention to Stephanie.
Well, you were listening to say like what you wanted to say next. You were
To
listening
respond.
for what
Yeah.
you could say next.
So that I can influence the situation that we were in that moment, especially if we were in a little bit of an argument. Right? So, we're going to talk a little bit about just this active listening component. We're going to talk about how do you really sit back, turn your brain off, give your partner literally give them your full attention and hear and comprehend what they're saying. When you're active listening, you're not in a reactive mode. You're not in a, give back mode. You're literally in a receiving mode in the moment. And man, as I built this active listening skill set, because I genuinely had to build it, and I have to truly be intentional about it today. I found the nuances of what I pick up on conversations, especially in our marriage, help me be able to respond differently, respond with more kindness, respond with less of a strong tone, not take things so personally, even maybe. And so if you're out there and you find yourself taking things personally and being frustrated when you're communicating with your partner and you feel like they're never listening and you feel like they don't hear you, I got you. And Stephanie has you. We have both felt that way about each other. Thank goodness she's better at this component than me, but this is a skill set that we can all grow.
I don't know about you guys, but I know in today's day and age, this has become harder than ever to active listen because we have never had more distractions than we do now. Cell phones being number one in that, where I, it's so frustrating, right? And we all do it. I do it too. And that is like, I'll be trying to say something to him and he's looking at his phone. And I'm like, did you even hear what I just said? Sometimes I doesn't even say anything. I'm like, oh, he definitely didn't hear what I said.
Hold on, bro. So look, I just almost called Stephanie bro. What's crazy is Stephanie calls me babe. I call her babe. It's like pet names. We have some other pet names that we'll tell during some other episodes. But so if I know, she's like, Walt. Oh, shh. Because I'm looking at my phone. Walt. Yeah, she's like, I just called your name 3 times and you didn't even hear me, because I'm looking at like tidal wave videos in Pakistan on my cell phone, not even hearing that she's trying to get my attention. We get so focused and so absorbed. So if I hear Walt, I used to get pissed about that kind of stuff. Now I'm like, oh, my wife is just trying to get my attention in the moment. So if your spouse is calling you by your first name, they probably want your attention.
Well, I have to so I get frustrated with other people when I'm trying to talk to them and they're not looking at me and they're looking at their phone or they're looking at the TV or they're you can just tell they're somewhere else. They're not paying attention. And then what do you want to do immediately? You just shut down like, well, I guess they don't care what I have to say. And then you just won't even communicate anymore. You're just like, I'm done. And you leave. And so the active listening piece is huge because all of us want that respect. We all want to feel heard. We want to feel seen. And if you're not active listening, it feels like the opposite of all of that. You feel disrespected. You feel like no one, you're not being heard. You're not being listened to. They don't care how you feel. That's how it feels when someone does not look you in the eye, make eye contact, give you their full attention. That's what we feel. So this is super important in your communication. Like you can't have true communication if you don't tune everything else out and fully pay attention to the person speaking to you. And we all do it at times. So we're working on, even us, we're working on getting better at this. And, I think it's one of those, like, you got to make a rule for yourself. Like, as soon as someone is engaging in a conversation with you, put the phone down, and put it face down to where you can't see the screen, or you put it away in your purse or your pocket or whatever, so that it's not a distraction anymore.
Or at dinner. Oh, I see people on their phones all the time at dinner. So Steph, if we like to call our little thing conversation corner, might be a walk and talk one day. It might be like sitting in the chairs in our bedroom and having a conversation. It might be sitting on a couch, but conversation corner is what we like to call it. So Steph, for you, how do you feel like when you feel the most engaged by me, when you feel like I'm active listening? What are some things that they can do or that they can look for in their partner and tell their partner what they need from them in order to feel like they're being actively listened to?
Eye contact is the number one. You have to be looking at me or I feel like you're not engaged.
Mm-hmm.
There can't be any other things you're looking at, or, you have to have the full attention and things, like, even if it means like turn the TV off, turn the radio off, turn whatever else is going on. If you need to go to your room and shut the door because your kids aren't, they won't leave you alone or they're nagging at you, then that's what you need to do. Like sometimes that's us. We will go into our room and shut the door and even sometimes tell the kids, hey, like we're having a conversation, so I need you to just leave us alone for a few minutes. Like we'll come out when we're done, or we have to set those parameters.
Yeah.
And you need to let your partner know this is part of the communication piece, is you need to actually tell them if that stuff is bothering you or if you can tell they're not engaging, because sometimes they may not even realize it. And they're kind of just like, oh, they're still trying to pay attention to something else and listen and do it all at the same time and not realizing how you're feeling about it. So
You can't multitask and listen. You just can't. I feel like I'm a great multitasker. You can't do two things at once. Always pick your partner instead of picking whatever else is in front of you at the moment. And by the way, and
and
then we know with little
also
kids, that's really hard to do.
also interrupting. Like if you're in the middle of saying something and you really want them to listen to this and they interrupt you and they just start telling you about something else and you're like, that also tells me that what I was saying wasn't important and you weren't listening and you didn't care. That's how it
Mm.
feels. So the interrupting piece is also a big piece of, the active listening. You can't make sure that they're kind of done saying what they need to say before you jump in with whatever you're going to say.
And by the way, we do that to each other all the dang time. Sometimes I'm like, Steph, dang, you keep interrupting me.
Okay, so in my defense, I just have to share this, okay? Because, and you all, if you know Walt, he can talk for a really long time. And I don't have the same patience I used to have. So sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm just going to cut in because I'm never going to get a chance to speak. So,
So you see, the struggle is real, even for us.
yeah. And I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about. You probably have a partner. Someone has a partner like him.
Yes, they do. And they're super awesome.
Listen to this. Oh my gosh. This is what I deal with. Are we moving on?
Let's move on. Let's keep it moving.
So, number 2, express your thoughts and feelings openly.
Ooh.
And by this, we mean create a safe and non judgmental space for open and honest communication. So, this is one that we talk about a lot. I've talked about this on a lot of podcasts. I'm always driving this home, and I single out the men a lot because I feel like in general, that it's a lot less common for men to open up and be as vulnerable. They feel, like that makes them less manly or whatever you want to put it. But
yeah, we're programmed to not do it.
right. I think men struggle to feel like it's okay to be vulnerable. But I'm telling you, as a woman, we need you to be vulnerable. We need that honest communication. We need you to actually share how you feel. And I know that you've been programmed to not share how you feel, that's girly or whatever. But to be honest, for women, we need it. We need to know how you really feel because I was kind of talking about this with Walt earlier that, if for instance, you come home after work and I say, how was your day? And you just say, fine. Well, that feels like you're hiding something or you
just feels like you're short. You don't want to communicate.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, they're all excited to see us when we get home from work too.
Yeah. And, to be honest, like I was a stay-at-home mom for a lot of years and that was a big time of day for me. Like I was excited for him to come home because I haven't talked to an adult all day some days. And it's like, I just need some interaction. And I would love to connect with my husband who I haven't seen all day. And it means something to me. And I know for a lot of men, you don't necessarily want to talk and that's not really your thing. But I'm hoping to get across that for men, like what usually the woman, we want that. We need that sometimes. And so even if you feel like it's not what you want to do, chances are your wife does though.
Well, it's the reprogramming for men. It's really understanding that vulnerability is the ultimate flex of strength. And relationships are all about compromise. And we're going to do an episode in a couple of weeks about that. It's really about your significant other, whether it's your spouse or your girlfriend, fiance, whatever that is, your significant other, like they want to support you. You heard Steph say women need their men to feel vulnerable to connect more, but they want to help support us. Like we feel like we got to provide, protect, we're the rock for everybody around us. And we just get exhausted. And, sometimes it's okay to say, I'm not okay. And I am struggling. Or sometimes it's okay to say, hey, you know what? I had a really shitty day at work and I don't want to talk about it at all. Let's talk about something else.
Even if you say that, that's helpful because at least then I know, okay, like I know where you're coming from. Then I know, oh, you didn't have a great day. Then, I'll give you some space, or it allows me to know how to support you.
Mm-hmm.
I,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like sometimes you know, sometimes men feel like they're being interrogated. Like, why do you need to know all this? Or why
Yeah.
does that matter? What, like, you really
Like
need all these
you need the
details?
play by play. Good Lord. Like you're like ESPN right now, like giving the play by play of the game. Come on.
But honestly, for me anyway, I know, and I think a lot of women feel this way is, but I like to know about your day.
Mhm.
It just helps me to feel more connected
Well,
to
you
you.
love us. That's why you're asking.
Yeah. Like I
You know?
actually care. I know to you it may seem like it's boring, there's nothing to really tell, uh, but sometimes for us we're like, cool, but I've been around kids all day and so I just want to hear something about your
Uh-huh.
day. Like I like to know what you are doing. Like not because I don't trust you and I don't, like something I think something's going on just because I like to hear about you.
Well, and the thing is, you got to have radical conversations too. But I think one more thing to your point, Steph, is that conversation that you have with each other. I mean, I think those of you who have teenagers get this 100%.
Mm.
They come home from school, they get to a certain age. I don't know, it's probably like 11, 12ish or so. You're like, how was your day? Fine. Did anything happen today? No. I'm going to my room now. Really? Damn. Okay. Okay. I love you. So nice to see you. I feel really connected to you now. Well, how does that not affect your spouse in your relationship? And I do think that really being able to share your thoughts, your feelings, and most importantly, concerns with your partner is so critical to just a solid communication in your relationship. We don't have radical conversations. With Steph and I really struggled the most. We didn't have the conversations that we needed to have. We just kind of shut it down and then went down the path of resentment, which added anger and hurt and, guilt for how we weren't showing up as spouses for each other. And then, it just cascaded to all this negativity. I really feel like the more you can have radical, candid conversations, and we're going to talk about how to do that a couple steps from now, but when you have those and you're really open and honest, not only can you repair your relationship, not only can you build trust in your relationship, but you build a togetherness that people that won't do that for whatever reason just won't have.
But to be honest, the thing is, if you don't have like open conversation like that, is with something as simple as that, how was your day? If you can't even communicate about that, sometimes it does feel like you're hiding something because it's like, well, why is it a big deal to tell me about your day? Like,
Mm-hmm.
did something happen that you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to tell me? Like, you do, and then you start to jump to conclusions and you start making things up in your head because you're like, well, why wouldn't he want to talk about that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you start making scenarios and you don't want that.
Yeah, yeah,
Trust me.
yeah, yeah. You don't want people to get in their own head. And by the way, it's made even worse. Then your buddy calls you up, and you're like, "Yo, what up, bro? What's happening? Yeah, bullshit at work." Boo, 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 boo. And you're telling them all about it, but you won't even open up to your wife. The greatest connection that you'll ever have, or vice versa, right?
Yes, I
The
love that
greatest
you said
connection
that.
that you'll ever have in your relationship is to trust each other enough to allow your partner to support you. They can only support you if you express your thoughts and your feelings openly. And then so what happens? So you express your thoughts and your feelings opening. We're moving to this third piece. Then you need to be empathetic and understanding of what they're actually telling you. And this is hard sometimes, especially when it's about you. When I was stressed out in corporate America, when I was grinding and 12, 14-hour days, and I was on my hustle, trying to just make it, trying to provide and support for our family, trying to just be the everything to everybody, but nothing to myself. There were so many times when I wouldn't even take a second to try to understand what Steph was saying. She'd say, "Man, you seem really snippy lately." She's trying to express her thoughts and feelings. "You seem really snippy lately. I feel like we're kind of walking around on eggshells." And oh man, I would be so offended in that moment because partially because I felt guilty. I knew the truth. I knew the truth. I had to turn the finger back on me. I knew my tone sucked. I knew my body language sucked when I was having a conversation. So my words verbally might not have been something overly drastic, but my tone was. It was just, not great. She could tell I was angry and upset when it really had nothing to do with her. And so she's telling me that they're walking around on eggshells. And I'm thinking, like, all I'm doing is busting my ass for this family. I'm working myself to death. I'm trying to give you guys everything that I feel like maybe you want. And I'm trying to create this life that I have always wanted. And at the end of the day, they didn't care about any of the things. Really listen to what I'm saying. They didn't care about the things. What they cared about was having a happy father. What she cared about was having a happy husband, the one that she met that wasn't so stressed out all the time. And so you really got to put yourself in your partner's shoes and and have some true perspective on their emotions and how they're feeling. And this goes for both. This does not work unless both parties are willing to own their piece of this puzzle. And when you can put yourself into their shoes and you can validate how they're feeling and you can support them and you can love them and you could just give them a hug, maybe. Or maybe for the ladies, like your husband's stressed. So, some things that are some stress relief that might need to go down. And then maybe there's better sex in the bedroom that night. And that's a stress relief. There's so many things that you can do. But if you don't communicate and empathize and understand, and then try to show up as that person that your spouse needs in the moment, you don't get any of it. And all you get is resentment. And then you start down the path of ultimately getting a divorce. So this is really important for people to feel seen and heard.
Yeah. I gotta say, again, and Walt and I went through some of this because, like I said, I stayed at home and he went to work. So we're coming from two different worlds.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to work and I stay at home. And so we have a hard time understanding what each other is really going through and doing during the day. And so sometimes it's like, you know, and there were times where he was deployed and I was at home with the kids.
Yeah.
And so we had a different perspective there too. And, sometimes he would call me and I would be complaining about the kids and how they were acting. And he was like, well, at least you get to see them. And then I felt like, oh, like I guess I shouldn't be complaining about it or, but then I felt like not heard and not, like not understood. And then it was like, I guess I can't share this with him because he doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
it.
And
And
meanwhile, you're thinking, well, at least you don't have to worry about all the stuff that comes with raising little kids because you're not dealing with any of it. I just need some damn help up in here. Right.
yeah. So that's the piece that I feel like sometimes when we say practice empathy and understanding, try to understand where your partner's coming from. Even if you really can't, at least try to at least listen, hear them out, maybe say something supportive, even if you can't really understand what they're going through. Because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't frankly know what he was dealing with either. Like, I've never been out to sea and been away from the family like that. I didn't know what that was like. So, sometimes we can't relate, but we can still show empathy and understanding and support each other in a way that at least we feel like you care.
Well, and if this goes for ladies and men, if you don't create a safe space for your partner, if they feel judged, if they feel like they're always going to be ridiculed, then they're going to go find a safe space someplace else. That's real.
Well, and this is where the communication breaks down because as soon as either party feels unseen and unheard, you don't feel understood, you'll stop communicating with them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the worst place to be. If your woman goes quiet and vice versa, but it's more noticeable in the woman because generally the women are the ones that are more open and share their feelings. But if they stop sharing their feelings with you, you're not in a good place because
Somebody's
women
shut down
always
emotionally.
want to share that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know that was a point in our marriage where we knew it was bad because we were both getting to that place of like,
Mm-hmm.
we weren't sharing anything now because we don't feel like we were being understood or heard or seen. So, this is where the communication breaks down and why everyone says communication is the most important because once that communication breaks down like that, it's very hard to get back.
Slippery slope, man.
Mhm.
Right then, you got to work double time to get back to where your heart really wants to be. That's the thing. We all want to be still in love. We all want to love our partner. We all want to be the best, like it was when we were young. Like it was when I carried stuff across the parking lot on my back when we were young. I didn't have no shoes on. I'm in the rocks and I dusted the beach sand off her feet on the hood of my car. Now I'm like, my back's hurting. Like, put some flip flops on. Like, the reality is times change and things change. this doesn't change. Communicating in your relationship is a necessity to have true happiness and have such a fruitful partnership that you can not only be the example for your family, but you start being the example for others.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to number 4, which is using I statements. So when we discuss, challenging stuff for us, and we say things like, "You always do this," and I am guilty of this for sure. There are definitely times where I was like, "You
We're both guilty of
always
this
do
one.
this." That comes across as blaming.
It's attacking.
I'm blaming him. I'm not taking ownership. I'm blaming him. Versus if I said, I feel hurt when this happens or you do this, that sounds more like I'm taking accountability, or I'm just letting you know that's how I feel. That may not necessarily be what's happening, but that's how I'm feeling. That's how I'm taking it. So it lets you know, like, then you're not necessarily placing blame. You're just saying, this is how I'm feeling about it, though.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference in those two statements and how you say it. And I don't know about you guys, but as soon as someone says, like, you're immediately on the defense and you immediately want to attack back because you're like, don't say I always do that. Like
who are you talking to right now? I don't always do that. That's a real fruitful conversation that comes from those statements.
So I'm sure you can see how the difference in the way the conversation's going to go if we start it that way versus I feel this way. I hope you guys can see the difference.
And don't say I feel hurt when you always do this. And by the way, guys, like, look, Stephanie, she's not on time very often. Okay. That's like, look, that's probably,
don't say you always.
I'm not going to say it. I'm catching myself. Y'all hearing me be real thoughtful of my speech pattern right now. So the funny thing is 26 years into our relationship, almost 24 years of it being married now. That's probably our biggest point of contention. And the thing is I would say that, and we're always late. I just can't stand being late. I feel like it's disrespectful to the people we're meeting. Guess what I started getting in my head before we went anywhere? We're always late. We're going to be late. And I would put myself in chaos. I'd put myself in a really pissed off mood, which then affected how we were communicating with each other. But really, I'm just mad for no reason. But then we'd be on time that time. So here I am making an absolute statement when there's literally nothing that's absolute in this life. Nothing. Except for we're all God's children and he loves and forgives us. That's about the only thing we can say is absolute, right? And so for me, I like that opportunity to say, hey, this is really bothering me. So Steph and I have learned over time to really communicate things really early when we're feeling frustration with each other. And it could be something as simple as eating dinner. She doesn't really care when we eat. Like she'll just when I get hungry, right? I like to eat by 6:30 at the very latest because I get hangry. I don't know if y'all get hangry, you feel what I'm talking about. I'm just hungry. I like being on a schedule. I grew up in chaos, so I like the idea of a schedule too. And so having that conversation and saying, hey, I like to eat a little bit earlier. Here's why I like to eat a little bit earlier. It really does matter to me. And her saying, okay, well, I grew up eating at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. That's kind of what I'm used to. And then us saying, all right, where can we compromise on this? Like, where's a middle ground for us that we could feel pretty good at? Now, that doesn't mean that every time it has to be at 6:30 sharp. That means if we don't eat a couple days a week until 7, I can't be like, see, we always be eating after 7 p.m. I told you I was hungry. You told me you were going to do 6:30. That just means we compromise. And the majority of the time, it's not my way. It's not her way. It's our way. It's our way. And man, let me tell you what, like those little petty arguments that we all get into in our relationship, those start to dissipate super quick, right?
Situations where you've got to find compromise because there's never, almost everything, we're never going to completely agree or want to do it the same way. So we have to make compromises. Like he just said, like he likes to eat on the earlier side. I like to eat on the later side. So we meet somewhere in the middle and that's kind of what we agree on. And this applies in so many different aspects of our relationship. But yeah, this is huge and we've both really worked on this. We really do try to. I know I'm much more thoughtful and intentional when I go to talk to him about something that I feel like, if I feel like it's happening a lot, and I'll say, "Hey, I feel like this."
Mm-hmm.
And he responds totally differently than when I was like, "Yeah, you always do this." You know, it, it's one of those things. It's like, for the women, we'll probably be like, "You never help me with the dishes," or "You never bathe the kids," or,
Absolute statement.
yeah. And for them, it's like, you know, we call it boom boom, or we have a couple different words for.
A double snakes, S's, boom boom. We had to use code words. All you people with parents out there know you all got your code words for some sex in the bedroom.
So for them, they're thinking like, and this is where we get into this crazy cycle, is like, because if we are feeling like, oh, he's not helping me out with this stuff around the house, then I'm not going to give it up. And they're thinking like,
Mm-hmm.
she's not giving me that, I'm not going to help her. And then we get into this tit for tat where it's back and forth, and both of you are just saying, well, I'm not going to do it because you're not. And then nothing happens. And that's where the relationship becomes stagnant, and real resentment builds. Real resentment, that slow trickle, that it starts out as a slow trickle, and then over time, if that keeps happening, it turns into big resentment.
Yeah. It starts drowning you like a big old fire hose. So stop using absolute statements. Have that empathy and understanding. Start using I statements. But look, we could go. This is now we're gonna move to the fifth one. So we could talk about all these different things. We talked about active listening. We talked about expressing thoughts and feelings openly. We talked about practicing empathy and understanding. We talked about using I statements instead of absolute statements. None of it matters if we don't set aside time to communicate. I can't tell you how many dads, how many men I've seen talk about they just don't have the time to have that conversation with their wife. Maybe it's two working parents. And if you don't prioritize this, there's always time, guys. There's always time. We just don't prioritize the time. Next time you feel like don't have time, say, the time to have a conversation isn't a priority to me. Not, I don't have time. See how that feels. You're going to make the time. So for us, we have, we joke it's conversation corner. Like I said, we've done our walk and talks where we'll go take a walk in the morning together and we just talk and dream and build and talk about things that might be bothering us, talk about ways that we want to win together, talk about switching the podcast around to doing what we're doing now. I mean, we talk about so much, but make dedicated time for that. I don't even care if it means you go in the room before you go to bed. You put your phones away. Stop looking at your phone before bedtime. Put your phone away. Put your book away and have a real conversation with your spouse. Look at each other. Have a conversation. Did you know that couples that pray together only divorce 1% of the time? Couples that pray together, it's huge, guys. Like, do a check-in with your spouse. Like, ask how they're feeling, ask what they need, ask what makes them happy, ask what makes them sad. Like, there's even little cards that are conversation starters for your relationship. And it's funny, I do got a funny story. So Steph and I recently, we've been trying to pray together. Well, second night we go to do this, it's Steph's turn. Steph's like, well, I'm used to praying by myself, and as much as I like to talk, I don't even know why I get nervous to do it out loud, but I do. And Steph was like, dear Jesus. And then she started laughing because she just felt kind of dumb praying. Then I started laughing. And do you know what's really cool is because we made time to try to do that, we created a very fun memory for each other. And we finally I don't even know what we prayed about. We finally got through whatever we were trying to say. But it's like such an endearing memory for me that we just were laughing and we had to giggle. You can't be looking at each other when you do that. And then you start laughing harder. And it was just a really cool, neat memory for me that happened only because we set aside time to do that with each other. Make the time, guys. I promise you, you won't regret it. Make the time and both commit to the time. Stop making excuses. Make the time.
Yeah, you guys, we went to a marriage workshop. Gosh, I don't know, a month or two ago.
Yeah, maybe 6 weeks ago-ish.
Pretty recently, and we haven't been to one since we were in the struggle in our marriage, which was about 12 years into our marriage, and then we're now at 24. So our last marriage conference, we were together 12 years. This one was at 24. And we've been together 24 years and we're still learning stuff. We're still growing in this. Like he said, we didn't do that. We pray on our own. Usually like when we
Even
go to
for
bed,
each other on our own.
we just say our own prayers, to ourselves. And we learned at that like at that workshop that they talked about praying together, and we thought, oh, that's something we've never tried to do, and so we wanted to try to do it. Well, neither one of us is used to saying it out loud, so it was very awkward. It's still awkward for me, but and they even said it's going to feel that way at first, but the more you do it, it will become more comfortable, and it really is a connector. And so this is what we mean. Like, we're still learning things about each other. We're still trying to grow in these areas. Like, I feel like there's always room for improvement. No matter how good you think the relationship is, there's always room for improvement.
We're pushing ourselves and pushing each other in all these categories.
Oh, yes. And so it's like he said, I think, we do have very busy lives, especially today. This is our problem, is that we don't make enough time to connect with the people in our lives. And we need that connection. Um, and you can't truly do that unless you tune everything out and get rid of the distractions. So you have to make time for each other. You have to make time for your family. So you've got to set aside time that's dedicated to just your spouse, though. Like he
Mm-hmm.
said, and if you have little kids, I know that's way harder. We've been there, done that.
Yep.
Got the t-shirt.
Mm-hmm. Got a multiple t-shirt for that one.
Yes, and sometimes in those times it was like he said, maybe that's just at night right before we're going to go to bed. That's our few minutes that we actually get to talk, or riding in the car somewhere, or I mean, it just, you have to find it. If you have to go out in your garage and have an ice cream together and that's your only time together, then that's what you have to do. Like, whatever it is, you have to make the time. It's so crucial. We can't stress that enough. I know we were we're both pretty frugal. And so when our kids were little, it was always like, paying a babysitter. We didn't know, it was like,
Well, I wasn't an officer in the military yet. I was like a E4, E5 in the military. We didn't really have the money to pay a babysitter.
and because we were military, we didn't live near our family. So we didn't have people we felt like we could trust to leave them with. So we didn't do that enough. Like, we found out the hard way how important that actually is. And
Right.
you do need to do it. And even if you can't do that, somehow find a way to just create little dates for yourself at home if you have to.
Yes.
But you do have to create that time for your spouse. That's the most important relationship, because you can't really be there for your kids and you're not going to give them the example they need if you don't invest in their relationship.
Right. Look, everybody wants to be seen. Everybody wants to be heard. Everybody wants to feel loved. All of these communication techniques that we're talking about today, look, guys, they take practice and patience, like Steph talked about. We're working on these today. We'll be working on them until the day we die, because not only do these keys really help us communicate better, it helps us communicate with our kids better. They help us communicate with other people better. Communication is the lifeblood of every single thing that you do, and the way that your relationships will either go towards a negative or become extraordinarily successful and a beacon and a sign of hope for other people to continue to still follow. And look, the more you foster these communication strategies, the more you focus on these 5 things. Just start with the 5, right? Start with these 5 things. Have a conversation with your spouse. I would love for spouses to listen to this together. Stephanie and I listen to a lot of podcasts together. Then we talk about what we took away from it. And man, you want to talk about how that's helped our marriage
Yeah.
and our own communication, and how we hope and dream and love, and how we talk about emotions, how we do everything
And a
together.
lot of times we do take away different, something stood
100%.
out more to one of us than the other. But then if we share that with each other, then we know, oh, then that was really important to them. I need
Yes.
to focus in on that a little bit more. So, hey, it all works.
Yeah. So look, go all in. It's time to strengthen the communication with your partner. It's time to start winning in an extraordinary way in your marriage. And as always, like, we rebranded again, right? So Legacy Driven Marriages podcast. You can find us at Legacy Driven Marriages on Instagram. You could find us on Facebook at Legacy Driven Marriages, and even YouTube. And we would love to know what strategy that you plan on implementing the most. Have the conversation with your spouse. It's time to get into the arena of marriage. It's time to focus on creating generational legacies that you can be extraordinarily proud of. And it's time to continue to fight for each other. So, look, guys, as always, stay in that arena and
Leave this world a little bit better than you found it.
see y'all next Tuesday.